Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. My name is Dan Meisenthal. I'm the spokesman for the State Department of Transportation. Once again, really appreciate you taking the time out and talking about this project that we have that we're discussing for the Kahului Airport. All right, first of all, we're going to be talking about Runway 220, structural improvements here at the Kahului Airport. You're all familiar with Runway 220. You've all landed on it probably hundreds and hundreds of times throughout your lifetime. I have a laser thing here. It's this runway right over here. It's a long runway right in front of the terminal. And I just want to give you a quick history of this runway. It was actually originally constructed back in 1942 by the military. There was an 8-inch cinder-based layer, and on top of that there was 3 inches. HMAC means hot mix asphalt concrete. It's basically just asphalt. And in 1952 is when commercial airliners started landing here at Runway 220. Now, since it was constructed, there have been 5 subsequent asphalt overlays: 1969, 72, 81, 1995, and in 2000. That cost about $4.2 million to do that overlay. There was a partial 3-inch asphalt overlay as well in 2006, about $3.4 million. So right now, it started out 3 inches thick. It's about 16 to 8 inches thick of asphalt. So what we've been dealing with, and actually this isn't a new problem, it's been happening. Of course, it kind of went away as we're doing these asphalt overlays, but Runway 220 demonstrates increased asphalt pavement deterioration, basically, in form of cracks, shoving. There's all kinds of proof of pavement stresses. A slow but steady rise in these stresses has resulted in an increase in the presence of foreign object debris, FOD. FOD has the ability to basically severely damage aircraft. It can get sucked up into an engine. And FOD prevention is one of the top safety priorities for the FAA. So this is something that we're very aware of. We check this runway every day. We take note of what's happening. If something has to be fixed quickly, we'll do it. But usually we save our repairs for Saturday nights when we have the biggest period of time where the runway's not in use, about a 5-hour window there. This is a propeller. It's a fan blade, and I don't know if you can see it, but you see this jagged edge right there? So a piece of FOD got dragged into this, and it basically made this big chip, and they didn't even realize it until afterwards. But this will give you an example. This is why the FAA is so concerned about this. And of course, thousands of runways across the country. It's a situation they're very aware of, and they want us to be aware of. So, to give you an idea of what's going on right now, of course, Governor Abercrombie officially came into office January of 2011, and at that same time, an engineering firm called URS Corporation was awarded a contract to determine exactly what's wrong with Runway 220. Now, we've always had an idea, we've always known that there's problems, but we don't know exactly what's happening with Runway 220, and that's why I brought this engineering firm in. They went in, they did a ton of boring samples, all kinds of work out there. They came up with some preliminary findings, and those findings were double-checked by another engineering firm. So we wanted to make sure that we had everything as accurate as possible and make sure that all these engineers, these different engineers, they were looking at the same information and they were seeing the same thing. And basically, this is what they've come up with. So, like I told you, the asphalt, there's many different layers on top of this. And what they determined is that the asphalt is literally slipping. It's going like this, basically. So there are about 75 aircraft that land on this runway daily. Runway 220 is by far about 90–95% of all aircraft land on this runway. And it's literally slipping. So there's a point between the asphalt layers that are separated. And that's what's causing these increases in cracks and this deterioration. And here's some pictures of it. You can see cracking. There's a joint deterioration. Here's a surface deformation. Now basically these lines are normally straight across, but you can see that they're actually kind of almost bending there. And then of course we got the repeated patching. And something I want to point out here, the repeating patching. See these grooves here? They do 2 things. They help with traction when the planes land, and they also funnel water off when it rains. And so as we continue to patch, we lose that effect a little bit. So now, a lot of you might be wondering, is this runway safe? This is this runway that we arrive on, this is the runway we take off on, this is where our kids go to college, this is where they fly out of. It's so critical to us. And so the FAA released this statement confirming that the runways are safe. The runways at Kahului Airport are safe in their current condition. HDOT has been making repairs as needed to the airport's primary runway. We notified HDOT that we consider this type of repair to be maintenance and it is not eligible for Federal Airport Improvement Program, AIP funding. We suggested that a more permanent solution would be eligible for AIP funding depending on the availability of those funds. So basically what the FAA says, yeah, it's safe, but there's a problem with this runway. And you have to address it because they're not going to deal with the maintenance. They're not going to help us pay for the maintenance. And the money that we spend on keeping this runway operational, it's money that we should be using for the airport. So in 2008-2010, $1.3 million from the Airport Special Maintenance Fund went to fix these intermittent repairs. 2009, that's when the FAA pretty much informed us, you know what, we're not going to help pay for these repairs anymore. In 2011, that number went up to $1 million. We spent $1 million last year repairing this runway to make sure that it's operational and safe. And we expect that those repairs will continue to increase. This basically is what triggered our investigation into it. So for us at the Department of Transportation, safety is our top priority. And we want to make sure that this runway is safe, not only for the next 10 years to come, but for generations to come. Knowing what URS Corporation told us, we had to come up with different options about how to deal with this situation. But basically we've got 3 options, and we'll just go through them real fast here. Now the first option is an option where no wide-body aircraft would be able to land for 8 to 10 weeks. Wide-body aircraft are basically all the flights from the mainland. It would cost about $34 to $47 million. 75% would come from the FAA because this isn't maintenance, this is a permanent fix, something that they would help pay for. 25% would come from airport user fees. Those are the airlines, the vendors at the airports, and etc. And so basically what we would do is we would go in and we'd have to close runway 220 down. Runway 220 is 7,000 feet. Runway 523 is 5,000 feet. You need about 7,000 feet for these wide-body aircraft to land. So we'd have to close 220 down, so that means there'd be no wide-body aircrafts that would be coming in. And we would go in and we would fix this part of the runway right here. We would take the asphalt out, we would go below that area that's slipping, and then we put a concrete base on top, and concrete would last 30, 40 years. If we did it with asphalt again, it would start becoming an issue maybe in 8 to 10 years. We have to start repairing asphalt. Concrete is much better, it has way more durability, and it just would be ideal. Now the second phase, this portion of runway 220 would now be open, and still would not be long enough for wide-body aircraft. 523, where the inter-island planes would be landing, we'd close 523 down because we'd have to work on this intersection right here. After we complete the intersection, then we could reopen the runway, reopen the airport to wide-body aircraft and flights from the mainland. Once again, best case scenario, no weather events, no other unforeseen issues come up. We're talking about something that would last 8 to 10 weeks, 12 weeks, around there. So when we approached the governor and Maui lawmakers, initially, this was something like, okay, we can't just discuss safety in the HDOT. That's our top priority, but we don't live in a bubble. We have to understand what we do, how it impacts whatever community we're working in. And so we worked with the Department of Business and Economic Development, Tourism, and Hawaii Tourism Authority to try to come up with some kind of economic impact, some kind of idea of what kind of impact this would have on Maui County. And so basically, 2.6 million airline passengers to Maui in 2010. That includes, of course, residents as well. And about 1.4 million of that 2.6 were from direct overseas arrivals. Now, of the travelers that came, they spent an average of $35 million a week, according to the Hawaii Tourism Authority. So we're talking about, if none of those travelers came to Maui, for a 10-week period, it'd be a loss potentially of $350 million. If 50% of them still came via other destinations, Honolulu or the Big Island, it still would talk about a loss of $175 million. But what does that really mean? So we tried to figure out exactly, okay, what would be the trickle-down effect? Not just tourism. I mean, obviously tourism, first of all, you'd have staff reductions at hotels. Just like any kind of event where there's a disruption. The hotels have a contingency plan. If their occupancy hits below 50%, they're going to let staff go for a little while until that business picks up again. Tour companies, the same thing. Even employees at the airport. Anybody who works in a tourism industry related business, wherever they shop at, whatever places they frequent, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a gas station, whether it's their local supermarket, they would feel the impact. Agriculture, for instance, it would slowly trickle down. Once again, how exactly? No one could really tell you for sure. And I guess that's the one thing that's it's an unknown. It's an unknown economic impact. How many overseas visitors would actually cancel their trips? We don't know. Would all the airlines resume service, and when? Now, we would assume that all the airlines would resume service, but this would be a big disruption for some of these major airlines like Alaska and United who come here. And the question is, okay, so if we tell them we're going to be closed for 10 weeks, how much time would they give themselves to make sure that they don't book flights for an airport that's still closed? So once again, another unknown out there. Could this damage Maui's reputation around the world? Possibly, maybe not. Once again, we just don't know what the true economic impact is. Taking a look at option 2 now. This is for no wide-body aircraft landings for 3 weeks. It will require an extension of runway 523 of about 2,000 feet. The cost of about $66 to $84 million. Once again, 75% federal funds, another 25% for airport user fees. And this is how this would actually happen. 523 is a shorter runway. It's about 5,000 feet. We would add about another 1,500 feet on this end over here. We'd have to build new taxiways. We'd also add another 500 feet on this end over here. While we're doing that, all flights, wide body and inter-island, would be able to land at runway 220. Now to make this happen, this area right over here, we actually start to bleed into our rent-a-car area. So where some of the rent-a-cars are located. Now there's a project on the books that that's set to go. It's 2017, 2018. We would move this project up. And what that project is it's the Consolidated rent-a-car facility. So this is the map of the airport. You can see right over here. This is the airport access road. This project is ongoing. It's on track right now to be finished probably sometime 2014, 2015. This area right here is where the Consolidated rent-a-car facility would go. And basically what it is it'd be the same level as the existing parking lot, and it would extend. There'd be parking on top of here. And the rent-a-car facilities would all be in one location underneath this parking lot area right here. One of the reasons why we want to move this up is, if we extend runway 523, we've got to move those rent-a-car companies somewhere. And it's going to cost money. We haven't exactly figured out exactly how much money, but it could be like $10, $15 million to temporarily relocate them and then move them over here. So that's one of the things we might as well go ahead and move this project up, seeing how we're going to be moving them in any case. This would have to happen before phase 1. These are 2 different projects that are going to be happening at the same time. This project with the access road, the parking lot, we're talking about somewhere around $250 million project on top of the runway extension. So we finished 523, and we now open 523 to all flights, wide body and inter-island flights. That way there'd be no disruption in service at this time. Then we go in and we rehab runway 220. Go in there, take out the asphalt, put in the concrete, and after that's complete, we would have to work on the intersection over here. And that's when service for all wide-body aircraft would stop. Now we estimate this to be about 3 weeks. Once again, barring any unforeseen problems that arise, weather events, anything that could happen on a project. And then after that, so runway 523, about 7,000 feet. Runway 220 would be the same length, also about 7,000 feet. Now if we were to do something like this, obviously we try to time it so it would happen at a slow period, in September, October, November, where it would do a minimal impact to the community. The fact of the matter is we really don't know what the true economic impact of this would be. Option number 3. This is the option with no landing restrictions whatsoever. This requires extending the runways 523, 2,000 feet, and runway 220, 16,000 feet. This is about $110 million to $134 million project. Once again, FAA picking up 75% of the tab. Airport user fees would pick up the other 25%. Just like option 2, we would lengthen 523, put in the new taxiways, lengthen it on both ends. We would also have to go ahead with the rent-a-car facility to make room for 523. Once again, 2 separate projects that we're pursuing at the same time. Once 523 is completely open, it would be open for all aircraft. Of course, while we're working on 523, everything would be landing normal on 220. So after 523 is complete, then we would go in and we would extend runway 220, 1,600 feet. This area right over here. We have to put in new taxiways for the cars. We'd have to realign some roads. Something I failed to mention earlier, over here we'd have to realign the airport access road. We'd also have to move Kahului Street down closer to the canal, but there would never ever be any disruption. The road would be open before we close the other road. We have to realign a few things, but basically that's what we'd do. And if we did this way, while we're working on the intersection here, 220 would have about 7,000 feet, so it would still be able to handle all wide-body aircraft along with inter-island flights. And that way we could avoid any kind of shutdown of the airport. Those are the options that are out there. This is a situation that the Department of Transportation right now is dealing with. Something I want to let you know about what we've been trying to do under the new leadership, under Director Okimoto and Deputy Ford Fujigami is, normally what the state will do in a process like this is that we kind of figure everything that we want to do, and then we'll start the EIS process, or the environmental process, and that's when the public has a chance to weigh in. What we really wanted to do is we wanted to go out and we wanted to approach all the stakeholders and get it out to the public before we even started that process. We wanted to get an idea of what it would take, because once again, our top priority is to make sure that this happens. I mean, in a way, we just want runway 220 fixed. So whatever it'll take to do it, that's what we're willing to pursue, and we're willing to, examine all options and listen to all opinions that are out there. There might be something that we haven't even considered, that someone in this room might have an idea that will work. And so that's why we're out here today.